Hey everybody, Mike Naso here. August 23rd, 2006, we are on Tropical Storm Debbie, the fourth named storm of the 2006 season. And looking back 8 years ago, we did get our fourth named storm around this time, and look what happened. We had a lot of storms out in the Atlantic and a few bad ones in the Caribbean and on the East Coast. 99, similar situation with Dennis in August, and we had the same thing, Eastern Atlantic and Caribbean. Go to 2000, this time in 2000 we had Debbie out there as well, and we ended up having a whole bunch in the Eastern Atlantic and a bad one in the Caribbean with Keith. And then going to 2001, we were on Dean around this time in 2001, and we ended up having a bad year for the Caribbean and a lot of storms in the Eastern Atlantic. So that's saying something, I think, that this year we're probably going to have a nasty Caribbean hurricane season and a lot of Eastern Atlantic storms and potentially a bad year for the eastern coast of the United States, but it's still too early. Anybody could still be hit. On the side of your screen there, you can see Hurricane or Tropical Storm Debbie starting to come into view. Here's Invest 97L out here, and then the Gulf of Mexico. We have a little area of disturbed weather that's moving in Mexico. Won't be a problem, but we're going to start with Debbie because that is the problem right now. The only problem out there, and it's not much of one. As of 11 a.m., 50-mile-per-hour winds gusting to 65, west-northwest at 17. Hope it keeps that up. 1,000 millibars, and you could see when it was down here and it started moving southwest or west-southwest, and you're going, uh-oh, center's relocating south. And you're thinking, man, is this thing going to move like this? And by the time it gets to 20 north, it'll be at 60, and it'll miss the connection and move west as a hurricane. And that all changed when it continued that steady northwest movement that the models correctly anticipated. It's forecast to become a hurricane on Sunday, but looks like some shear might come into play, so it probably will not intensify into a strong hurricane. You can look at it now, and you look at it on visible, and you go, oh, look, it's good looking. It has some outflow, some convection. But once you look at it on the IR, you go, what is this? I mean, there's no deep convection, and it's just, I mean, the water vapor shows there is a lot of dry air around this thing. So it's a pretty puny tropical storm at this point, but it is slowly getting organized. Here's the model spread, and you can see most of the models continue at west-northwest to northwest. If it maintained this track, which it won't, for about 5 days, it'd be still well away from Bermuda and well away from the United States or Caribbean. So, I mean, compared to where it is right now, it is well away from any landmass whatsoever, and it'll probably turn. And in fact, the Hurricane Center noted that their track is very generous with turning it lightly, and I mean, most of the models turn it real quick. I would go with most of the models at this point. I think it'll turn quick, and that's still, even if it took the Hurricane Center's track well away from Bermuda. There's Invest 97L, looking a little bit better organized, somewhat with some rotation in it. This one's going to probably be a Caribbean buster as it moves on up to the west-northwest. It'll probably go through the southern windwards, and from there it could develop into a tropical system. You can see it better there. Still pretty far south, but this, you hardly ever see waves go directly into South America this time of the year. They usually end up getting caught up like that and moving into the Caribbean Sea. You can see Debbie there on the right side of your screen, not looking too good. Here's the model output for 97L. GFDL is well to the north. All the others kind of have it heading into the Caribbean Sea, and I'd go with that. I think it's going to probably move up towards Jamaica and the western Caribbean Sea and then towards the Gulf of Mexico. And again, it could start to develop as it moves through the eastern Caribbean Sea, but the more serious long-term development into a tropical storm would probably develop in the western Caribbean Sea. So we'll keep an eye on it. Here are some models as of the 0Z Canadian. Shows our Invest up here north of Yucatan, which is clearly a good track, I think. And then there goes Debbie off to the northeast. MM5, the FSU model, has our system up here over Hispaniola while Debbie moves on off to the northeast, and another wave coming off behind that. And then the GFS 6 days out. There goes Debbie up here. Here comes a new system, and this is probably going to get caught west if that were to develop. And you can't really find our other Invest 97L, but do have an interesting storm in the eastern Pacific. So that's some of the models. Elsewhere in the tropics, strong tropical wave going to move off Africa. This one probably a little bit to the, it's probably going to come off right about or a little to the south of where Debbie came off, so we'll keep an eye on that. That could be the wave the GFS is noting. But other than that, not much. Debbie kind of the Lone Ranger out here, and it's not looking too good for a Lone Ranger at this time. Eastern Pacific is very active. In fact, all the Pacific is active, except for the Western Pacific. But that's because the Madden-Julian oscillation is in a downward trend there, and everywhere else is on an upward trend. There's Hurricane Eliana, a very powerful major hurricane, and then weaker but still powerful Hurricane Aoki. There is Eliana, 120 miles an hour, strengthened slightly, but it might be on a downward trend for the next couple of hours as it moves west-northwest at 12. 960 millibars, still expected to go through an eyewall replacement cycle and then intensify into a Category 4 and then slowly bend back west. You can see it there as the visible comes out. Looking pretty good, but notice this little slit up here. That's the beginnings of an eyewall replacement cycle. Other than that, you can see a very moist environment around it. And finally, in the Central Pacific, Hurricane Aoki, 105 miles an hour, had been up at a Category 4 hurricane. It's been weakening down to a 2. It's moving northwest at 6. The slow motion is expected to continue, and it's expected to re-intensify close to Cat 3 and then kind of slide around very close to the date line, and once it crosses 180, it would become Typhoon Aoki. Nevertheless, it's still far enough away from the big island of Hawaii, the state of Hawaii, that it should not be a problem. But looking on satellite, it's looking pretty large and impressive. And there's Hawaii right there, so keep an eye on it, but right now it doesn't look like it will be much of a threat. I'm Mike Naso, and I'll see you next time.